Hello, it's Shu here, and this is The Certain Way Today. What on earth does that mean? The Certain Way is a phrase that pops up in a book by an old guy called Wallace Wattles. It was published in 1910-11, and the book kind of encapsulates everything the old boy had learned about life. And he was obviously a bit of a philosopher. He'd read lots, and he realised that people didn't really want to read all that stuff. What they needed was something that was really distilled, the wisdom of the ages, you could say, all distilled in one book. He also realised that people haven't got time to kind of really understand it. And what you just need is a map, a certain way. He called his book The Science of Getting Rich. This is my well-thumbed copy of it. It's a really good edition, this one. It's got lots of sort of history about it and explanation about it in the beginning. I'll put an Amazon link to it down below. And yes, I'm an affiliate and I will get a small amount if you buy it, but you will pay no extra. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. That's the saying. And we are going through a phase at the moment which is very similar to something that Wallace Wattles had been through, the Gilded Age it was called. And you had the iron and steel and railroad magnates who kind of ruled the world, or ruled America anyway. That was the world that he knew. And so it is today that we are sort of slowly having all these oligarchs taking over. As someone who's spent their life in creative industries, I see so much change around, and that is something which he probably didn't see. An enormous change with AI and stuff like that going on. And I kind of feel the pain of creative people as they are slowly being squeezed into different boxes and different shapes. I really think that this little book has so much to offer. Now, the easiest thing is to hold it up like some kind of a Bible and preach, follow this book. That's not my way at all. I'm not religious. I'm not proselytizing. But I do feel I have gained so much from this book that it would be unfair and mean and miserly not to share what I have learned from reading this book quite a few times over the last sort of 10, 15 years, I suppose, since I first found it. 15 years ago, I was in not a very good place in my mind, railing against stuff, working like mad and not seeming to get anywhere. I was at that time, some of you might recognise, when you get to sort of going off to university and how are we ever going to afford to get them through this? We managed somehow. It just seemed like the world was against me. And there was a TV programme came on. It was a kind of an arts kind of programme that we watched. It was a weekly thing. And they did this programme about self-help books. And they were very kind of sneery to start off with, self-help business books, they're not proper authors. As they went into it, they sort of realised that self-help books actually do help people, and that's why they sell so many copies. Right at the end of the programme, they suggested one book called Feeling Good. Somebody looked very sincerely straight into the camera and said, "This book is the real deal." And that book set me on my way. It was a tortuous journey of self-inspection, and every day I got my notebook out and went through all the exercises that they suggested, and slowly began to understand all sorts of things, unpick things, and didn't fully put myself back together again, but I was sort of a lot happier by the end of it, but was sort of fascinated by this self-help book thing, and sort of became a bit of a self-help junkie. I think it's a thing people do. So this was all around the time of the great financial crash, 2007, 2008. And a lot of people were in a similar boat, I think. You may remember there was a movie came out called The Secret. And well, I found that really interesting. I found some parts of it really interesting because there was some serious scientists there. They were talking about quantum physics and stuff. And I thought, there's something going on here. But there was a lot of woo-woo nonsense in it. So I kept looking and learning. I'm British, and we're very sort of stiff upper lip. And I think part of the attitude in that TV program I'd seen was, that we're British and all this self-help stuff is American. And sure enough, most of the books I started coming across were American and were very gung-ho and go for it, and just didn't quite chime somehow. Through it all, there were these words that kept reappearing, like abundance. And I sort of felt like it was like a trigger word, which was being used as a code word from these people who know out there. And I'm going to just throw that word abundance, it's like a dog whistle. You go, oh, right, I'm one of those. Like a sort of Masonic thing, like some people out there know something. And the word abundance has been so overused since, and I even have a savings program thing called abundance. It's become a marketing word recently. And then I kept hearing these references to New Thought. I thought, what is New Thought? So I started researching, and I found New Thought was this sort of movement in America in the sort of mid-1800s, I suppose. And it's a sort of a Christian capitalist philosophy. And I suppose Christianity and capitalism is classic cognitive dissonance. They don't go together, but somehow the New Thought movement kind of brought them together. And I thought that was interesting, but it was this sort of religious angle. It just didn't quite seem right. I don't know how I heard about it. Anyway, so I heard about this book, The Science of Getting Rich. And I thought, oh yeah, that's very likely. So what is this science? I don't think it's kind of quite science as we think of it now, with a white coat and safety glasses and stuff. I think what he means by science is that if you think of in a chemistry lab, you get 400 millimeters of this, 200 millimeters of that, 1 gram of this, mix it all up, shake it for exactly 20 seconds, heat it up to exactly 43 degrees Celsius, whatever. If you follow the recipe, if you follow the formula, you will get the same result each time. Yeah, that kind of rang a bell with me. I did chemistry at school and I remember doing that. And, just slight variations, things will go wrong. Get it right and it works. And being a sort of a creative kind of person, I always want to add something else and try a bit of this and throw a bit of that in. And so you're not going to get exactly the same results each time. My wife loves to bake, and I'm very aware that each cake, each recipe, if it's not followed exactly, if the temperature isn't exactly the same, if, you've left it in for an extra 5 minutes by mistake, you get a different cake. The size of the egg. It says 3 eggs, large eggs, small eggs. It makes a difference to the recipe. It makes a difference to the formula. But Wattles says there is a formula. He says, I've not worked it out. This has been worked out. He said, I've read all these philosophers. He was a Methodist minister too, although he was a bit of a rebel, and I think he got kicked out. It's a bit murky, the history of him. And he was living in this infusion of Christianity. So, that's just what it was. And Christianity infused the everyday language of his time. Quite a lot of what he says, I'm not saying it's Christian teaching, I would say it's the teachings of Jesus, which are two totally different things. The teachings of Jesus of Nazareth are completely different to the teachings of the church. This is a temporal political thing. Jesus was a fantastic philosopher. So he takes the philosophy of Jesus and often sort of drops it in. The whole science thing is really interesting because the time he was living in was really exciting if you were into science. It was exactly the time that Einstein was revealing the secrets of the universe and relativity and everything. They'd just been through all electromagnetic theories, field theories and stuff like that. It wasn't that long until sort of quantum physics would sort of begun to emerge. So it was a scientific ferment going on at the time. And I get the feeling that Wattles was kind of a really keen kind of amateur scientist and, taking it all in. I kind of feel a similar kind of person. I'm fascinated by science, and so I'm sort of constantly listening to science programs and what's going on in the world, what's going on in Australia, astronomy, quantum science, all sorts of stuff. So I'm really interested in all of that. And then all the way through the book is this word certain. I think the first 3 or 4 times I read this book, I couldn't get to grips with it. And I felt he was saying, there's a certain kind of thing, implying that there is this secret that you've got to search for, a certain kind of something, and I'm not quite going to tell you what it is, but it's there. Believe me, it's there, and eventually it will be revealed. No, what he actually means is certain means sure. It's the formula. If you follow the formula, you will get a certain result. Not a certain result. You will get a certain result, a sure, certain, steady, repeatable result. That's what he says. And once I got that, the rest of it began to make sense. Now, we seem to be living in a very transactional age. It's a very bullying kind of age. It's easy to feel that everything is running out. The end of the world is nigh. It's really sad. You hear young people saying, there's no point in having children because, I don't want to bring children up into this awful world we're living in. Well, actually, the world we're living in is still pretty fantastic. I'm looking outside my window. It's spring and things are beginning to bloom and blossom, and it's very beautiful and green and lovely. And for goodness sakes, I'm staring into this amazing camera. I got this amazing microphone here. I can see myself on my monitor here. I got all this technology, and I can get on the internet. It's fantastic, and I can talk to you. Where's the end of the world in all of that? It's the most fantastic technology. It's the most fantastic time in history to be a human being. There is so much potential. And I think potential is a big thing of Wattles. His basic creed is, he says that there is this thinking stuff from which all things are made. So this is where it gets a little kind of woo-woo. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to get to grips with quantum physics and to kind of understand what's going on. And there is, when you break everything down, it all comes down to, these tiny little things. And from that, all things are made. He doesn't want you to worry about all the, I think, therefore I am. Just assume you are, and therefore you're in this world, get on with it, okay? You don't need to know all the philosophy about God and stuff like that. You are just here right now, and how are you going to get to have a good and happy life? But more importantly, how are you going to make it a worthwhile life? And this is where the getting rich bit comes in. It's a real clickbait title. It's perfect clickbait title to get you to read it, because once you read it, you begin to realize, wait a minute, rich doesn't just mean money, although he starts off talking about money because he knows that's going to get you interested. He has this axiomatic approach. He starts off by saying, if you want to live a full life, you need money. Money is the means of exchange. That's how we buy things. You need things you need books, you need sofas, you need food, you need stuff. And nowadays, that's how we get those things. So you need money. Let's work out how we can get you some money so you can have these things to live a full life. And on that axiomatic building block, where we can all kind of agree on that, yes, that's a kind of a truth we can all agree on, then he starts building his argument. He says the universe, or even beyond the universe, whatever it is, whatever the universe lives in, the whole shebang is made of the same stuff. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made. Then he has this incredible idea that he says a thought placed into that stuff creates the thing about which you are thinking. And when you think about it, that's how it works. You think, I really want to live this life. I want to have a nice little house and a car, maybe a Fiat 500, maybe a Porsche, whatever. But you think those things, and then suddenly you look around and you've got those things because you've thought them and you kind of create them. You don't actually go, I'll have a Porsche, ding, but it's your thought that sets off all the motions in the universe, send it out there, that move everything around so that there's a car dealer down the road who happens to have that very Porsche that you want and whatever it is and things like that. And I think it really came to me when I had this watch. I had a Swatch watch, if you know what they are, these sort of plastic things. They're not terribly expensive. And I thought, this is the epitome of human technology. You know, they've created this quartz thing and it's really nice and simple. It tells the time. And all these sort of woo-woo self-help books were saying about, you know, make a mood board of all the things that you want and everything. So I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have a new watch. So I thought, what kind of a watch would I? I want a clear white face. I want just handles, a minute hand, and the day and the date. Because I can never remember what day or date it is. And so I found this watch on Amazon. So I suppose a Swatch watch then was about £30, and this watch was like £110, and I would never spend that kind of money on a watch. It was gold plated or something. It was a very pretty watch with a leather strap. So I pinned it up in front of me, thinking, one day I'll have that watch. One day I'll have that watch. And I couldn't justify just buying it. And then I was in the garden and I was digging away, and suddenly, bang! My hand hit a rock on the side of a wall, smashed this watch to bits, my Swatch watch. And I looked at it, and there was just this moment, okay, that's the universe telling me, just ditch your watch, buy the new one. Use your credit card, buy the new watch. The credit card is there so that you can have this thing. The world, the universe has moved everything around so that you can have that watch. And so I just came straight in here into my little studio, got onto Amazon and bought the watch. And there it was the next day. And I went and did the same thing, as smashed the glass. So I had to send it off to be fixed. And it came back, there's all lovely new glass on it. And then I got invited to Guam, which is out in the Pacific, right on sort of the equator around there. And I was wearing this leather watch, and after a while, I thought, what is that smell? And of course it was sweat and the leather watch strap. It was starting to rot. And I just got myself a new iPhone as well. And on the same kind of principle, just do it, get it. I think it was actually the iPhone 1. And I looked at the phone and I thought, I don't need a watch. And I got home, I put the watch away in the drawer, and I've never worn a watch ever since. But I learned this lesson that, you know, there are ways and means, not of getting things, but there are ways and means that the universe brings them to you. But you have to kind of want them and intend that you will have them, if that makes any sense. So I really started trying to put all the things that Wattles was teaching into practice. Yeah, it did change my life. Did I get rich? How do you define rich? This is the thing. I've had a long and full career as a children's author and illustrator, and compared to many people, I've done very well. Compared to others, I'm languishing at the bottom of the lists. I'm not a multi-millionaire or anything like that. But I've sort of got through my career, and you know, I'm still here, basically. I wouldn't say I was rich, but I would say I have a rich life, and I'm very thankful and grateful for all that I have. And I'm very thankful and grateful to Wallace Wattles to have got me to this point where I can feel comfortable about it all. But I'm not finished. I want to keep going, and I've got sort of ambitions and things still. But one of those ambitions is to kind of share what Wattles says, the things that I've found helpful, and not to preach, but kind of to witness that, yeah, this works. It's worked for me, and it might work for you. So I don't want to preach. And then I started thinking about, well, you know, YouTube is obviously the way to do it. So I made a couple of videos on my other channel, which is called Shoe Rainer Drawing, which just don't fit with that channel at all. So I thought I will bring them over to a new channel. And how do I get started? So I just posted those up there, and that's something to put on there. But this is my first rambling video on the channel. And I've chosen this black and white aesthetic for the channel to kind of cut down on distraction, I suppose. And I think that's what we're all suffering from, is a lot of distraction. And then once I decided to do that, I thought, but I have to kind of prove it somehow. I have to do an experiment and walk the certain way and to show you this works. I've reached this moment in my life where all my friends and contemporaries are retiring. I don't know what they're doing, playing golf or something. I'm sure they're very bored. I have this huge list of books that I've written over the years. I set up a ChatGPT-S, which is a kind of a personal AI bot. I've determined its character. I've determined who it should be. I've based it on editors I've known. I've based it on business gurus that I admire and whose ideas I might base it on Wallace Wattles too. So this AI has a character that is shaped around these things. And so I've been discussing all sorts of things. How am I going to repurpose my life? How am I going to repurpose my career with a mind to proving that a certain way works, and with a mind to witnessing, as I say. I think witness is a much better word than preach. To witness what I have discovered through reading this book and through Wallace Wattles' teachings. So I've spent a lot of time and hard work throwing ideas in and out and in and out. My books have always been kind of literacy kind of books that are read at school. So I'm now turning them from books into literacy resources, and they're sort of curriculum resources for schools. Becoming a publisher, really. Becoming a publisher now more than an author and illustrator. Being more business-like, but still in a creative kind of ways, and trying to follow this certain way as proof, because I feel I can't sit here and spout and say stuff unless I'm actually saying, I'm putting it into practice over here. So that's what I'm doing. As for this channel, I think, while I sit at my desk, I just have thoughts. As I'm going to sleep, I have thoughts, and I'm thinking about this stuff all the time. This is kind of my hobby, I suppose. So I imagine I will just be talking to camera like this, spouting off, and you're either going to like it or you're not. So if you like it, make sure you are subscribed. Click that button down there so you know when I make another video. So I'll leave you with my current mantra. I don't know how to fix the world, but I know how to make something from it. That's my part, and that's enough. Thanks for watching. You take care, and I'll see you next time on The Certain Way.